Good evening and welcome to another episode of Inside the FLX. I'm Josh Durso and we are coming to you from the FingerLakes1.com studio in downtown Seneca Falls. Today we have former Mayor Brad Jones joining us in studio from Seneca Falls. He's going to talk to us a little bit about how he believes Seneca Falls can save some money and also make the community better moving forward. Brad, thanks a lot for coming on.
Well, thanks, Josh, for having me.
So, obviously, there was a big meeting on Tuesday here in Seneca Falls with the Seneca Falls Town Board. Talk to us a little bit about what your impression was after that meeting or what your thoughts were during that meeting.
Well, it was quite interesting. As you know, I've spoken at the last three meetings. I elected not to speak this past Tuesday. I went to be a listener, and quite a few takeaways. One being definitely there's a flavor of intimidation. There was one gentleman I'd like to touch on that really talked about consensus building, and then a lady toward the end shared some real good information, and hopefully the employees at Seneca Meadows listened to what she had to say. But let's touch a little on the intimidation. Mm-hmm. I was appalled that the corporate lawyer that represents SMI, as well as its parent company, I believe his name is Mr. Turner, would actually speak at a public forum from a podium and really talk down to the town board and our town attorney. Basically said, and hopefully listeners will look at your video mm-hmm. as well as look at Channel 12, but in so many words, he really threatened the town board to say if you elect to enact this new local law, the funding will cease immediately. Mm-hmm. Now, I know our town board, I know our town attorney. They're pretty wise when it comes to negotiations, and whether there's a breach, whether there's litigation, whether there's a lawsuit, the funding faucet will not turn off. Mm-hmm. All money that's due Seneca Falls will go into escrow. He knows that. Mr. Kyle Black knows that. No reason to try to intimidate our town board, let alone our residents. So I didn't appreciate hearing that, but some of the things I did appreciate hearing was Lou Ferrara, a good friend of everybody's here in town, mm-hmm. Fellow Miners Academy classmate. I thought Lou really, he had the yellow vest on to show his support for the SMI employees. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I don't think he had a hat on, but he was almost wearing a hat representing the taxpayer. And he really wanted to kind of push the emotions out of the discussion and talk about how do the SMI employees go forward if the landfill does close, mm-hmm. and how do we avoid a large tax increase to the residents. So I thought Lou really did a nice job of blending the two groups together. The one lady, Joanne Elliott, I have a lot of respect for both Joanne and her husband, Carl. I think many listeners would think that Joanne is a community activist. Mm-hmm. I look to her and her husband, Carl, as community teachers. They always come to the sessions prepared, done their homework, and hopefully what I had heard, and then it was followed up yesterday with a memo, there's proposed proposition currently with the DEC. Mm-hmm. It's called the 360 regulations on landfill closures here in New York State. We probably could call this breaking news because I don't think people really heard what she fully had to say. But the Seneca Meadows landfill employees have job security. They are not going to lose their job. This whole 360 regulation, Josh, is a mandate from the state, the DEC, saying all landfills have to stay open for a minimum of 30 years after closure, mm-hmm. For things like remediation, for monitoring, how would you like to be told that you have job security for 30 years? So let's jump back to intimidation, and Mr. Black, who I have a lot of respect for, somewhat of intimidating his own employees to come to this meeting to speak as if they were going to lose their job that day or tomorrow, when he knows, as well as the attorney that spoke earlier, Mr. Turner, they know these jobs will probably be retained. So I'm here to share with the residents of our community, as well as the SMI employees themselves, their jobs are secure. Many, if not most, their jobs will be in effect for years and years and years to come.
Now, one of the things you touched on there, and I think it's really worth talking about, because this is you're speaking to half of the concern from those who work for Seneca Meadows, but then there's the funding, the money, the dollars and cents. And I thought it was really interesting that there were a few speakers throughout the night who I felt there was a bit of a tone where it was, let's take emotion out of it and put dollars and cents into it and try to at least problem solve in the process. Talk to us a little bit about what your impression was of that and how that sort of came to be.
Yeah, I heard that message back to Lou Ferrara saying, let's take the emotions out and talk about dollars and cents. And really, there's an opportunity. Allison Stokes mentioned that maybe it's time for Brad Jones and others to come forward with this future financial state that they've been talking about. I've requested the town board, and I've had a good reply back from the members on wanting to sit down and listen. For the listeners today, basically, if the landfill was closed tomorrow, we have to be creative and come up with $2.5 million for the town of Seneca Falls. So there would not be a tax increase as a result of the landfill closure. The town of Waterloo, $500,000. So the total dollar amount for the listeners today is, how do we get creative and come up with $3 million? I have a 4-step program I'd like to share, touch on today.
Yep.
Hopefully I'm given the opportunity at this next community forum to go much further in depth. Maybe even do a PowerPoint presentation. By no means am I an expert, but we have to come up with a formula today rather than waiting. This board assumed that there was going to be a rainy day fund from previous boards, putting some of this money away when the landfill was planning to close. That's not the case. So this board needs to do their homework, and let's start tomorrow. Let's talk about step number 1. Everything to date, Del Lago, the new casino. You've probably read, you've probably heard that they've not only made the $50 million down payment to the state, but they've also come forward to the Seneca County as well as the town of Tyre well in advance with a payment. Wouldn't it be interesting if a committee consisting of town officials, county supervisors, some financial experts, I'd like to sit in, maybe you could sit in as well, Josh, and talk about how we could use some of this Del Lago funding. It's new money. That's the good news. It's new money. It hasn't been budgeted. It hasn't been promised. So let's just use the term for this first step, skim some of the Del Lago funding to make the town of Seneca Falls and the town of Waterloo financially whole. Not forever and ever. Maybe it's for 1 or 2 years, but it's an opportunity, and this money is not in anyone's budget. Step number 2, and I've had discussions with a few county supervisors. This is really on their plate, and it's skimming the sales tax revenue. I'm here to tell the listeners, and I'm here to tell the county supervisors, we shouldn't be interested on sales tax revenue that's currently in use in today's budget. For the listener, 10 years ago, the county used to bring in about $13 million a year. In the last 10 years, it's been $23 million. the good news for our area is sales tax revenue has not plateaued. It's been growing almost $1 million a year. So with that said, if we could sit down as a group, once again, not forever, maybe it's for 1 or 2 years, to figure out how we can eliminate any tax increase, skim some of this additional or this new tax revenue. Let's just say sales tax is at $23 million for the 2016 budget. Well, if it goes to 24 or 25 or 26, that's the portion we would skim for the town of Seneca Falls and the town of Waterloo. Now, I'm the first one to know that probably our school superintendents, good friend Ted Young, the mayor of Village Waterloo, they're going to say, me too, me too. 20 years ago when I was mayor, Josh, I even requested some of the sales tax revenue. But I think with what's on our plate, talking about health, the quality of life, the landfill closure, this isn't just the Seneca Falls or Waterloo. This is a regional health problem. And I think it may be the one time where the town, the county, and people like you and I can sit down and say, how do we make sure Waterloo and Seneca Falls land on their 2 feet? Third step, I've got to give credit where credit's deserved. Greg Lazaro. He's informed me, and I've heard it more than once, he's gone back to all the department heads in the town since he's taken office and has demanded, set a mandate, 15% reduction in their budget. This is this year, 2016, 15%. He's not waiting. He's being progressive. He's saying, we have to tighten our belt. So that will answer all the critics saying, hey, why doesn't the town do something first? He is doing something first. So maybe I should have started off with Greg Lazaro and the town board before I talked about Del Lago or even skimming some of the county sales tax revenue. The fourth step, Josh, is our good friend, Senator Nozzolio. Even though he's retiring at the end of the year, he's done so much for us at the state level. An example, I want to say in the last two times in the last 4 years, he's been able to go to Albany, to go to the state, and recover some funding for the property taxes that the Cayuga Indian Nation did not pay, the town of Seneca Falls, nor Seneca County. So in a sense, Mike Nozzolio, Albany, state of New York, really made Seneca County, town of Seneca Falls, financially whole. Whether it's Mike this year or his successor going in the future, this mega dump, this mega landfill, this toxic dump that we have in Seneca County is really New York State's problem. So whoever is replaced or replaces Mike, I think that's a fourth step and a good step. Once again, we don't have to go to Albany each and every year, but why we develop a plan and use these 4 steps, Del Lago, county sales tax new, as well as tightening our own belt, as well as maybe getting some help from New York State. And these are only 4 of my ideas. There may be 3 or 4 more that I haven't even talked about. So I want to start the conversation, and we should start it today, not tomorrow.
I think it's interesting what you're talking about because a lot of it really stems from essentially realizing that there was mismanagement before with the money and how it was treated, and we're in a place now where we need to be really proactive moving forward. And it's interesting that it's this meeting in the middle, right? You're talking about, the state, you're talking about the county, you're talking about the town, all parties working together. Now, to that end, how confident are you, I guess would be my question, that county leaders, town leaders from around the county would be interested in working on this type of deal or coming to the table?
Well, I want to say the timing is everything, and it couldn't be better than 2016. And the reason I say that, you got to give credit to our county board, too. They took the first initiative step on the trash train. If you remember, 14-0 against trash trains from New York City. They started a discussion. Wasn't too long after that, they went to their own well, $100,000 they've taken out of unappropriated funds to hire an environmental lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say the timing is right, our county supervisors aren't just representing Waterloo as well as Seneca Falls. They're really representing all 10 towns. Mm-hmm. And really, with our friends from Geneva, our friends from Wayne County, Ontario County, Yates, I mean, this is really a regional issue. So when you say, is the timing right, or are the county officials? I've had a few minor discussions. I think our Seneca Falls supervisors, I want to say our Waterloo supervisors, Cindy Lorenzetti from Fayette, many of these supervisors have been sitting in on these town meetings that have to do with the landfill. So once again, I don't have the answer. I just want to throw some of these ideas out and have our public officials make the final decision.
So what, obviously right now, one of the things you hear at every single meeting is this should be the closing date, or this should be the closing date, or we should have this in writing. Now, what is your sort of take? You've been listening to this for months, years. You've weighed all sides of the debate. What, if there were a concrete date in mind, what is your thought process on that?
Well, with everything we've talked about thus far, the good news for the SMI employees that their jobs are not going away.
Yeah.
The other good news is that there may be funding, whether it's these 4 steps, where there won't be a tax increase. I think there's only one date we can look at, and when I say we look at, really our town board. Mm. Our town board, all 5 are elected to either a 2 or a 4-year term. Now, we've heard dates of 2017 permitting the extension,
yep.
The permitting, October 2017. We've heard dates of 2023. We've heard 2025. I've mentioned this more than once to the board, so it won't come as a surprise, but I really want to talk to your listeners today. There's only one date that they can really have an effect on, and that's closure, October 2017, because it's on their watch. None of these 5 board members will be in office come 2023, nor 2025. Discussion on the street is, well, maybe renegotiate the host agreement for another 10 years. Well, that's 2026 or 2027. So my message to the listeners, as well as the town board, is do something today that you can control on your watch. Mm-hmm. The days of kicking the can down the road are long behind us. So if they're thinking about some date in the future, once again, they really have no say. And maybe this is what's happened with previous administrations. They've always felt better kicking the can down the road. Somewhat similar to the national situation on immigration. It seems like it just moves every 4 years.
Yeah.
This landfill, with what's going on with health concerns, leachate concerns, odor concerns, if we put the package together like we're talking about today, 2017 should be the end date.
Now, one of these supervisors, Supervisor Churchill, he sits on the county board. He referred to this particular town board as a potential dream team. And in a lot of ways, I think he was spot on. Now, talk to us about what your feeling was on that sort of synopsis of the current board.
Well, I know where Steve was coming from, and I thought when he labeled them as potential being the dream team, they really have a chance, and I've shared this with some of the members on the board. First of all, my hat's off to them. They've done a good job of listening. But I think it's time to make a decision. So let's just say they enact a local law not allowing the permit to go through, landfill begins to shut down SMI employees keep their jobs. What a way to write your political legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there'll be a dream team, but tell you what, my grandchildren, your kids, will be talking about Vic Peretta, Dave DeLalis, Annette Lutz, Greg Lazaro, Mary Sartori for years to come.
Mm-hmm.
They have an opportunity to really write their legacy. Let's say they take no action, or they kick the can down the road. The other option is, and I don't mean this in a negative tone, but in a way they'd be writing their own political obituary. And I don't think any of those five wanted to run for office or be volunteer or be appointed to office to write their political obituary. So I know they're going to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And I think with what we're talking about, bringing the groups together, the right thing will be done. We've done our fair share. We've taken everybody else's garbage. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be great to have a conversation sometime down the road talking with the landfill people right here with us on saying, boy, if you got to stay open for 30 years, why not have a recycling operation, state-of-the-art, northeast, right here?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could grow headcount at SMI versus the fear factor, the fear of God that your job's going to go away. We just want to say, no more trucks, no more garbage, enough is enough.
Now, is there anything, with the amount of time you've spent covering, working with, going through this issue, is there anything left that surprises you? Or is there any perspectives that wind up coming out at these meetings that surprise you or sort of take you off guard?
Really no surprises, but I do have a concern, so maybe you could label that as a surprise. And I've shared this with the board, and maybe it's time to share it with the residents. Leachate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were at the meeting Tuesday. It was all about odor, toxic fumes, not little or none or no discussion on leachate.
Mm-hmm.
Barb Reese, another lady that does her homework, she shared currently, and I believe I'm correct when I say 75,000 gallons a day actually go through the town lines to our wastewater facility.
Mm-hmm.
With the construction, with the casino, as well as Petro, new lines on 414, that's 75,000. I don't want to say double or triple, then I'll sound like some of the people saying taxes are going up 2 or 3 times. But it's going to be much more than 75,000 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
That's going through our wastewater system. And, you know, for people, I guess this is back to intimidation. When Mr. Black, or let's say even Mr. Turner, I've heard it in the past at some of these meetings where, you know, this pre-treated leachate that goes into the town of Seneca Falls sewage system, when that comes out of the wastewater facility, it's like drinking water out of the tap. Maybe without using the word intimidation, or maybe without using the word threat, I'll offer a challenge today to Mr. Black, Mr. Turner, the lawyer, and let's go one step further and have a representative from the DEC Section 8. I'll set it up to drink a glass of water, 16 ounces in size, that comes out of our wastewater facility, pre-treated, tap water. And I don't want to put a scare tactic into any of our residents, but I want to go to bed at night and sleep well, knowing that our community is not going to be the next Flint, Michigan, nor the next Love Canal. So my challenge to Mr. Turner, Mr. Black, and the DEC is to drink a glass of water, 16 ounces in size, once a day for 30 straight days. That's the challenge. It's not intimidation. It's not a threat. But if you want to keep your word, I'll set the tent up. I'll be the conduit to the media, and I'll be the first one to say I was wrong. So when you ask me if there's any surprises or concerns, to me, leachate is a bigger problem than maybe even the odor.
Right. So, I guess what is your feeling about the next community forum? Because obviously at the last one, it was Seneca Meadows was sort of at the center of it all. Do you think this one will follow suit and again be really geared towards that?
I want to say this landfill issue has a life of its own. I've even shared with Greg Lazaro, who I consider a very good friend. Do you really want to have this be an issue for all 4 years?
Yeah.
This could be an issue for all 4 years of his term.
Mm-hmm.
So you've heard the emotions. Today we're talking about the go-forward plan. Hopefully at this community forum that's set for June 22nd, Seneca Meadows employees will be there, not for the fear of God that they have to be there, but they know their jobs are probably going to be in place.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought the first community forum was great because the board spoke as well. Public comment, I understand you really can't say too much or
Yep.
open up, but I really thought there was good dialogue between the audience as well as the board. If there's an opportunity to present this 4-step plan deeper, further, fine. If not, we'll have that meeting another day. But I think with what Greg's doing with these community forums is a positive. And if he can do one every quarter or one every month, my hat's off to him.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to come in. Busy man, obviously. Still very active here in Seneca Falls, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Well, thank you, Josh.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us today. I'd like to again thank Brad for stopping by and wish him the best of luck with his continued work in Seneca Falls. And as a reminder to our viewers, Inside the FLX does air on Sundays at 7 p.m. on Time Warner Cable Channel 12. And as always, the latest news, updates, and podcasts are available on our app, the Finger Lakes One app. It's available on Apple and Android devices. For Brad Jones, I'm Josh Durso, reminding you to join us next time on another episode of Inside the FLX.